Some mornings in this courtroom I walk in, and I already know it is going to be one of those days, not a bad day, not a hard day, one of those days that reminds you exactly why you chose this life. November 6, 2023 was one of those days, and by 11 o'clock that morning I was sitting behind this bench trying very hard not to cry in front of a room full of strangers. I am 71 years old. I have been a judge in this city since 1982. I do not cry easily, but Maya Castillo made me cry, and I am not ashamed of it for one single second. If you have never heard a story like this one, stay right here with me. And if you think you have, stay anyway, because I promise you have never heard this one. Do me a favor right now and hit that subscribe button if you believe that real justice means seeing the whole person standing in front of you, not just the ticket in their hand. Now let me tell you what happened. My docket that morning was full, the way it is every Monday. The clerk, my longtime colleague, Ms. Patricia Green, who has worked beside me for 19 years, had already flagged a few cases before 9 o'clock. Case number TR 2023-08841 was not flagged. It was a standard speeding citation. 23-year-old female, ticketed on Reservoir Avenue at 6:17 a.m. on October 19th, 11 miles over the posted limit. Officer D. Ramos, badge number 5539. Fine amount, $95. On paper, that is a simple case. You pay or you contest. Nothing to flag, nothing to notice, except that when Maya Castillo finally stepped up to that podium, there was nothing simple about her at all. But before Maya came in, I had a visitor who set the whole morning on edge. His name was Marcus Thorne. Marcus was 31 years old. He was the co-founder of a software company in the jewelry district, a company that had apparently just received Series B funding to the tune of $14 million. I know this because his attorney mentioned it, unprompted, in what I can only assume was an attempt to impress me. Marcus walked into my courtroom at 9:22 a.m. wearing a black Tom Ford turtleneck, Balenciaga Triple S sneakers that retail for $1,150, and a Rolex Submariner on his left wrist. He had the kind of posture that tells you before he opens his mouth that he expects to be agreed with. He sat down next to his attorney, a man named Dennis Park from the firm Callahan Park and Associates on South Main Street, and he scrolled through his phone until I called his case. Marcus Thorne had received a parking ticket on October 11th at 8:45 a.m. on Westminster Street. The officer, T. Milo, badge number 4203, had cited him for blocking a fire hydrant. The fine was $100, not $95, $100. Marcus Thorne, co-founder of a $14 million company, had hired a private attorney to contest a $100 parking ticket. When I asked him to explain the citation, Marcus looked at me with a thin smile and said, "Your Honor, the hydrant in question was partially obscured by a city-maintained tree. My client had no reasonable way of knowing his vehicle was in violation." I looked at the citation photos Officer Mello had submitted. That hydrant was not obscured. You could see it clearly in 3 separate images. I said so. Marcus's attorney reshuffled his papers. Marcus himself exhaled slowly through his nose, the way people do when they are trying very hard to look patient while feeling the opposite. I denied the motion. I told Marcus the fine was due in full within 10 days, and then Marcus Thorne did something I'm still thinking about. He leaned over to his attorney, not quietly enough, and he said, "Unbelievable. This is traffic theater." He said it just loud enough for the front row of the gallery to hear. Traffic theater, meaning this court, meaning this bench, meaning the 41 years I have spent trying to be fair to every single person who walks through that door. I looked at him for a long moment. I said, "Mr. Thorne, this is not theater. These are people's lives. I would appreciate it if you would remember that." He stood up, straightened his Tom Ford turtleneck, and walked out without looking at me. His Balenciaga sneakers made almost no sound on the floor. I watched him go. And I thought, as I have thought 1,000 times over 4 decades, that a certain kind of wealth does something dangerous to certain kinds of people. It does not make them evil. I do not think Marcus Thorne is an evil man, but it makes them thin. It makes them unable to feel the weight of what other people carry. And in a courtroom, that thinness shows up fast. 10 minutes later, the clerk called case TR 2023-08841, Maya Castillo. She came through the back door slowly, and when I say slowly, I mean she was helping someone. She had her left arm extended behind her, and she was guiding an elderly woman through the door with both patience and gentleness. The elderly woman was small and hunched slightly forward, moving with the deliberate, careful step of someone who understands that her body is fragile and the floor is not always trustworthy. She was wearing a pale blue church dress and small gold earrings. Maya herself was wearing dark jeans, a white button-down shirt, and clean white sneakers. Her hair was in a tight braid. She looked like someone who had made the very best of what she had that morning. She settled her grandmother into a chair in the front row of the gallery, and then she came up to the podium, smoothed her shirt once with both hands, and said, "Good morning, Your Honor." I said, "Good morning." I asked for her name. She gave it. I looked at the file. I asked her if she understood the citation. She said yes. I asked her how she wanted to proceed. And then something interesting happened. Instead of launching into a defense, Maya said, "Your Honor, I was speeding. I want to say that first. Officer Ramos was right to stop me. I was going 46 in a 35. She paused. "I just want to explain why, if that's okay. Not to get out of it, just so you understand." I put my pen down. I looked at her directly. In 41 years, I can count on both hands the number of defendants who opened by admitting they were wrong. It is rarer than you think. I said, "Maya, I want to hear everything. Take your time." She took a breath, then she began. Maya Castillo was 23 years old. 18 months before she stood in my courtroom, she had been a pre-medical student at the University of Rhode Island with a 3.84 GPA. She had wanted to be a doctor since the age of 9, when her mother was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and Maya began reading everything she could find about how the body works and why it breaks down and how human beings can be repaired. Her mother passed away when Maya was 16, complications from kidney disease. Maya had been in the hospital room. She had been holding her mother's hand. She was 16 years old, and she watched her mother's breathing slow and then stop, and she had made a silent promise in that room that she would spend her life understanding medicine so that she could stop that from happening to other families. Her grandmother, Elena Castillo, had stepped in and raised Maya after that. Elena was 79 years old now, and she was sitting in the front row in her pale blue church dress right at that moment, watching her granddaughter speak. Elena had worked as a school cafeteria aide at Nathan Bishop Middle School for 26 years. She had raised Maya on a school worker's salary in a 2-bedroom apartment on Prairie Avenue, and she had never once let Maya feel the weight of how hard that was. She had gone to every school play, every science fair, every award ceremony. She had stood outside in the February cold to watch Maya march in the school band. She had done all of that while managing her own health issues, which included the same kidney disease that had taken Maya's mother. 14 months before this court date, Elena Castillo had been diagnosed with stage 3 chronic kidney disease. Her nephrologist had told her that without consistent dialysis, medication management, and careful diet monitoring, her condition would progress rapidly. Dialysis, 3 times a week, at St. Joseph's Dialysis Center on Broad Street, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 7 a.m., which meant someone needed to have Elena there by 6:45 a.m. The center opened the transport service slots at 6:30, but the waiting list for assisted transport had a 12-week backlog, and Elena could not drive, and the bus on Prairie Avenue did not run until 7:15. Maya had dropped out of her pre-med program to be that transport. Not right away. She had tried everything else first. She had called the transport service. She had gone on that waiting list. She had tried to negotiate her class schedule around the dialysis times. She had asked neighbors. She had looked into every option available to a 23-year-old with no money and a sick grandmother and a dream she was not ready to let go of. But in the end, the math did not work. The rides did not exist. The schedule did not bend. And Elena Castillo needed someone, so Maya became that someone. She had been driving Elena to dialysis every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday since September of the previous year. On October 19th, the morning of the ticket, Elena had woken up at 5:30 a.m. complaining of dizziness and nausea. These are not small symptoms for a dialysis patient. Maya had called the dialysis center at 5:48 a.m. The nurse on duty, a woman named Carla Sims, had told Maya that Elena needed to come in immediately, that she could not miss that morning session given her recent lab values. Maya had dressed her grandmother, helped her to the car, a 2007 Toyota Camry with 211,000 miles on it, and driven toward St. Joseph's in the dark. At 6:17 a.m. on Reservoir Avenue, Officer D. Ramos had clocked her at 46 in a 35. She was 11 miles over the limit. She was trying to get her grandmother to the hospital. Officer Ramos had pulled her over. He had written the ticket properly and professionally. Maya had not argued. She had accepted the ticket, thanked Officer Ramos, and driven Elena the rest of the way to St. Joseph's. She had sat in the waiting room for 4 hours while Elena received her treatment. She had then driven Elena home, made her breakfast, helped her back to bed, and gone to her Saturday shift at Gracie's Diner on Atwells Avenue, where she worked weekends to help cover Elena's medication costs. She had worked the full shift. She had come home at 11 p.m., she had gone to sleep, and the next morning she had gotten up at 5:15 and done it all again. I had not said a word for several minutes. My courtroom was completely silent. I was aware of the people behind Maya listening. I was aware of Elena in the front row, very still, very upright in her pale blue dress, watching Maya with an expression that was equal parts love and grief. I was aware of my own heartbeat, which had gotten a little faster without my permission. And here is where I need you to stop with me for just a second, because there is more to this story, a lot more. And what comes next is the part that the whole internet has been talking about. But before I get there, I need to ask you something honestly. Are you the kind of person who finishes what they start? Because the next part of this story is the part that changed everything in that courtroom, and I need you right here with me. Drop a comment right now. Tell me, what is the one thing you have ever sacrificed for someone you love? I want to know, and then keep watching, because what I am about to show you I still cannot fully believe. Ms. Patricia Green, my clerk, had been quietly working on the computer since Maya started talking. Patricia has worked beside me for 19 years. She knows what to look for. She knows the cases that need more than the file gives you. While Maya was speaking, Patricia had pulled up something on the TikTok platform. She printed 4 pages and walked them to the bench with her hand over her mouth. I do not know if I have ever seen Patricia cover her mouth before. I took the papers. Someone in the courtroom that morning had been filming, not obviously, a phone, angle low, probably from the second row of the gallery. Whoever it was had posted a 30-second clip of Maya walking in with Elena, helping her slowly through the courtroom door. They had posted it 2 days earlier, on November 4th. The caption read, and I want you to hear this exactly. This girl at traffic court drives this beat-up Camry and is dressed like she shopped at Goodwill Lol. She prob just looking for sympathy. The account username was Providence Problems 23. The video had 14,000 views. I felt something cold move through my chest when I read that. But then I looked at the comments, and this is the part that matters, because the internet, which I am usually skeptical of, had responded to that caption the way I hope human beings always would if they knew the full truth. The top comment, with 3,400 likes, read, I know this girl. She's been driving her sick grandmother to dialysis 3 times a week for over a year. She dropped out of school to do it. Maybe don't judge people in waiting rooms. Another comment, that beat-up Camry drives a 79-year-old woman to the hospital 3 mornings a week. What does your car do? And another, further down, she's not dressed like she shops at Goodwill. She's dressed like someone who spent her clothing budget on her grandmother's medication. I sat with those comments for a moment, then I turned the page. And on the second page of Patricia's printout was something that made me set down my pen entirely. Patricia had found Maya's University of Rhode Island academic record, and stapled behind it was a printed email. It was from the Brown University Pre-Medical Scholars Program, dated August 14th of the previous year. It was an acceptance letter, a full scholarship offer, full tuition, housing stipend, research placement. The Brown University Pre-Medical Scholars Program only accepts 12 students per year. Maya Castillo had been one of 12. She had been accepted to one of the finest pre-medical programs in New England on a full scholarship. A scholarship that would have cost her nothing. A scholarship that would have put her on the direct path to medical school, and she had turned it down. There was a second email in the printout, Maya's reply to the scholarship committee, sent on August 21st, 8 days after the acceptance. I want you to hear what she wrote, because I read it out loud in that courtroom and there was not a dry eye in the room. She wrote, "Dear Scholarship Committee, I am writing to respectfully decline my place in the Pre-Medical Scholars Program. I am deeply honored by this offer, and I do not take this decision lightly. My grandmother has recently been diagnosed with a serious illness and requires daily care that I am not able to provide from Providence while studying in a full-time residential program. She raised me alone after my mother passed away. She gave me everything she had. I am unable in good conscience to leave her without the support she needs. I hope to return to my education when her condition stabilizes. With sincere gratitude, Maya Castillo." I cannot fully describe what happened in that courtroom when I finished reading that letter out loud. There was a sound, collective and soft, like a room full of people exhaling at the same time. One woman in the gallery actually said, out loud, "Oh my God." Elena Castillo in the front row had her hand pressed flat against her chest. She had not known about the Brown Scholarship. That was clear from her face. Maya had never told her grandmother. Maya had made the biggest decision of her young life quietly and alone so that Elena would never have to carry the guilt of it. I looked at Maya. Her eyes were closed. Her jaw was tight. She had not expected me to find that email. She had not brought it with her. She had not offered it as evidence. She was not here to perform her sacrifice. She genuinely did not know Patricia had found it. When Maya opened her eyes, there were tears running down her face, and she was not trying to stop them. She said, quietly, "I didn't want her to know. I didn't want her to feel bad about it." That is when I broke, right there, behind this bench, in front of my clerk, my bailiff, a full gallery, and every defendant waiting for their own case. I felt it come up from somewhere deep, and I did not stop it. I took my glasses off. I pressed my fingers to my eyes. I sat there for a full 30 seconds without speaking, because some moments deserve 30 seconds of silence. Some moments have earned it. You know what the most powerful thing in this world is? It is not money. It is not power. It is not a Rolex or a $14 million funding round or a Tom Ford turtleneck. The most powerful thing in this world is a young woman in a white button-down shirt who turned down a full scholarship to Brown University, woke up at 5:15 every morning, drove a 2007 Camry with 211,000 miles on it through the dark, and never once told the person she was doing it for. Never once. Not for credit, not for gratitude, not for any reason except that Elena Castillo had stood in February cold to watch her march in a school band once, and Maya Castillo had decided that debt was worth every dream she had to give. If you are still watching this story right now, I want you to know something. You are not just a viewer, you are a witness, and witnesses carry things, so carry this one. Share this video with one person tonight, just one. Someone who needs to be reminded that this kind of love still exists in the world. Someone who is tired and needs proof. Be part of that. We are building something here together, and it matters more than any algorithm. Like this video right now if you believe Maya deserved better. Let's make sure her story reaches every corner of this platform. Now, I have not told you the last piece yet, because while I was regaining my composure, the back door of my courtroom opened again. I looked up. A man in a white coat walked in. He was tall, maybe 50 years old, with a hospital ID badge clipped to his lapel. The badge read, Dr. James Okoye, MD, Chief of Nephrology, St. Joseph's Medical Center, badge ID SJH 3301. He walked to the front of the gallery and stood there. He did not sit down. He said, "Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. I called ahead to your clerk. I was told I could speak." I said, "Dr. Okoye, this court is glad you're here. Please." Dr. Okoye looked at Maya first. Then he looked at me. He said, I have been Elena Castillo's physician for 14 months. In that time, I have watched Mrs. Castillo's condition do something unusual. It has stabilized. In patients at her stage, stabilization is not the expected outcome. Progression is the expected outcome. What Elena has experienced is, medically speaking, remarkable. And I want to be direct about why. He looked at Maya. It is because of her. Every appointment attended, every medication correct, every dietary guideline followed, every vital sign logged and brought to us at every visit. Maya does not just drive Elena to dialysis. She is functioning as a trained home care specialist without the title or the pay. I have physicians on my staff who are less attentive to patient outcomes than this young woman is to her grandmother. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. He walked it to the clerk's desk. He said, "That is a letter of medical necessity confirming that Maya Castillo's transportation of Elena Castillo constitutes essential medical care, and that any traffic violations incurred during emergency medical transport should be reviewed under that context. I should have written it sooner. I am sorry I did not." He looked at Maya one more time. "You are going to be a remarkable physician one day, Miss Castillo. Do not let this world talk you out of that." Maya's chin trembled. She pressed her lips together hard. She nodded once, the way people do when they trust themselves to nod, but not to speak. I looked down at the file one final time. Case TR 2023-8841, Maya Castillo, speeding 46 and 35, fine 95. I picked up my pen. I looked at Maya. I said, "Maya, the case against you is dismissed. Every cent dismissed." The gallery applauded. Elena Castillo in the front row made a sound I have never forgotten, a low, grateful sound like something long held had finally been set down. I held up my hand for quiet. I said, "I am not done." I said, "This court is going to make 3 referrals today. First, to the Rhode Island Medical Transportation Emergency Program, to get Elena a guaranteed ride assignment so that Maya never has to speed through another dark morning alone. Second, to the Brown University Admissions Office with a formal letter from this bench requesting that Maya's scholarship offer be reviewed for reinstatement under documented caregiving hardship provisions. And third, to the Rhode Island Board of Medical Scholarships because there is a re-entry grant program for pre-medical students who left school for caregiving, and Maya Castillo has my personal endorsement for every dollar of it." I turned to my clerk, who already had 3 forms ready, because Patricia Green has worked beside me for 19 years and she never needs to be told twice. I signed all 3 referrals while the courtroom watched, and then I did one more thing. I asked the bailiff to bring Maya and Elena a moment together at the front of the room before we called the next case. I stepped down from the bench, something I do not often do, and I walked to where Elena was standing slowly, having risen from her seat in her pale blue dress. I took her hand. I said, "Mrs. Castillo, you raised someone extraordinary." Elena looked at me. Her eyes were bright and full. She said in a voice that was soft and clear, "She does too much for me." I said, "No, she does exactly enough. That is what love looks like." And I would like to tell you that Marcus Thorne, whose case had been heard 2 hours earlier, was not in that building anymore. But I will tell you this. His $100 parking ticket was the least interesting thing about him that morning, because when Patricia ran his name through the system during a routine follow-up, she found 2 additional unpaid citations from 2022 that had rolled into bench warrant territory. His attorney received a very official letter from this court the following Tuesday. Sometimes the universe has its own docket. Before I let you go today, I want to say something that I mean with every year I have been on this bench. I have seen this city from a very particular chair. I have seen it at its lowest and at its highest, and at all the complicated in-between places. And the truest thing I know about this city, about this country, about human beings in general, is this: goodness is not loud. Goodness does not announce itself. It does not wear Balenciaga. It does not hire an attorney to handle its $100 ticket. Goodness wakes up at 5:15 in the morning. It drives a car with 211,000 miles on it in the dark. It turns down scholarships in silence so the person it loves never has to feel the weight of that choice. Goodness parks itself in the hardest corner of a situation, and it stays there. It stays there when no one is filming and no one is clapping and the comment section has not found it yet. Maya Castillo stayed. And on November 6, 2023, in Providence Municipal Court, this bench found her. Thank you for watching this all the way to the end. It genuinely means the world to me. If this story moves something in you, I want you to do one thing before you close this video. Leave Elena's name in the comments, just Elena. Let's fill this comment section with her name tonight as a tribute to every grandmother who ever stood in the cold for someone, who ever stretched a dollar further than it had any right to go, who ever loved a child into becoming something great. And subscribe to this channel because the next story I have for you is one I have been saving for the right moment, and that moment is coming very soon. It involves a decorated Army veteran, a courthouse parking lot, and a piece of evidence that made a defense attorney stand up and walk out of his own case. You will want to be here for that one. I will see you there. Court is adjourned.